Welcome back to another episode of That's Business. Today, you will hear from yours truly, your host, Angela Buccellato. And today I want to talk about stop downplaying your own experiences. Now, those of you that know me and have been following along the podcast for a while, you know I'm a career coach, I'm a resume writer, I'm the owner of the Resume Rescue, help people figure out what they want to do next in their careers. So today I want to talk about this topic because I work with so many incredible people every single day that just say, oh, well, I'm just a server. I'm just a nanny. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just. And I want to talk about how saying that is not great for your experiences or anything like that. I mean, you're downplaying yourself and the greatness that is you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own story and how I felt the same way. So growing up, I'm a millennial, as most of you know, and being told, okay, you're going to college. College wasn't even a question. It was when you were going and where you were going. So my parents, I was blessed and privileged enough that they had a college fund saved for me. And I didn't even think about what other options there were. It was just I was going to college. And I never questioned it, honestly, until later. But I was told, you're going to go to college, you're going to get the degree, you're going to get the high paying job, and all is going to be fun and dandy and wonderful. Well, as you know, that's not exactly what happened. So when I went to college and even dating back, I think it was 8th grade, early high school, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My maternal grandmother's an entrepreneur. My paternal great grandfather started the business that my dad now runs today. My mom started a business when she was pregnant with me. My uncle owns a bar. I mean, and my grandmother had her own baking business. So when I say entrepreneurship runs in the family, like it quite literally does on both sides. So I remember I approached my mom. I think I was home from Christmas break or whatever it was, winter break. I think it was a December time. Well, yeah, obviously it would be December. And I'd asked my mom, hey, what can I do to help like the business? I want to get involved. I want to help in any way I can. And of course, want to make money. I had been a nanny or babysitter, let's say, way too young, I think, but 12 to 15, I really got into babysitting, was babysitting all the neighborhood kids. And that's how I made my money. But I wanted more. So I approached my mom. I was like, hey, what can I do to help and make some money? So what I did was I started doing administrative work. I'd check bills. I'd do all the manual labor we had to do with my father's business being very paper oriented. So I'd help my mom with bookkeeping and all kinds of things. And it was just like a game to me. So I started doing that. And when I turned 16, I was like, okay, I kind of want something else. I have my license. I want to be independent. Think I know everything in the world at 16, as we all do. So I got into food and beverage. I started as a hostess at a Middle Eastern restaurant that had just opened, and it was more of a sink or swim. So I remember my very first shift as a hostess, and this place was very popular. Lesage and Sterling Heights, if you're local to Metro Detroit, that was my first like big girl job. And it was a sink or swim situation. It was very, okay, you're going to come hostess. And I was with the general manager, and I just was kind of thrown to the wolves. And when I was throughout that, and my family is very customer service oriented, very much, my brother and I have been talking for a very, very young age and just very outgoing. And I remember the general manager turning to me. She's like, and after I had told a customer, hey, the wait's 35 minutes. I got your name and information. If you want to go have a drink at the bar, I'll call you, just hear from my voice. And I remember the general manager turning to me. She's like, did your mother tell you to say that? Because that's amazing. I was like, no, but I figure they'll be happy if they're drinking, or they will be waiting and not up on us and saying, oh, well, when's my table ready? She's like, oh, that was great. So I've always thrived in a fast-paced situation or just kind of quick problem solving. I can't deal with anything slow. So from that experience, I then moved into getting into being a head hostess. I dabbled into bartending a little bit, and I was our head trainer. So anyone new that came there, I trained all hosts. I trained servers, just kind of like on the operations or how the front of the, as we call it in the restaurant industry, the front of the house works. So from that experience, I gained so many good skill sets. I mean, managing projects. I mean, Mother's Day or any of these large holidays, we would put tables in the restaurant to seat more people. I mean, we were busy from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. With it being a Middle Eastern restaurant, when Ramadan came around that time of year. So if those of you that don't know, you fast from sunrise to sunset. It's crazy, but it's part of religion. It's a really beautiful tradition. So we would get busy during Ramadan at 8, 9 p.m. So we would have like a traditional lunch and dinner rush at 8, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. So we had to prepare of, okay, all the orders are going to come in at once. And if you don't know how a restaurant works, once you punch in the order into the computer, it goes to the back in the kitchen. Well, if you have 10 orders being punched in at the same time, there's still the same amount of grill space, oven space, everything. So that's why tickets get delayed, because we do them in the kitchen will fulfill the tickets in order that they come in. So even if you punch in 10 at the same time, that's why things get delayed. You have to problem solve. I mean, I say everyone should have to work food and beverage, retail, or hospitality before they graduate high school, because you see the worst in people, but you learn a lot of great skill sets. Diffusing situations. I mean, there's been people that claim they had a reservation, but we had no record of it, and they would get irate. I mean, multitasking. A lot of time in that restaurant, we would, as the head hostess, you're seating people. You have to make sure every server got the appropriate amount of tables. You had to get carryouts. You had to track down the wait times. You had to make sure you're calling people, making sure customers are aligned. I mean, it was a lot of multitasking and attention to detail. When you work in restaurants, if you have someone that has an allergy or has a problem with something, you better track. You better write it on that ticket. You better tell the kitchen someone has a certain allergy, because you don't want that on your hands. All those skill sets. I mean, if we're writing this on a resume, we could say we align synergies with clients to identify needs and offer product solutions, the product being food. So when you're writing your resume and you're saying, oh, I've just been a server, I've just been a bar manager, I've just been a nanny, I've just worked in retail, you need to stop doing that, because not everyone has those skill sets. I used to think the same thing of like, oh, well, I just, worked in a restaurant. I just did this and that. But it actually helped me land my first internship. So I would downplay my experience working in a restaurant. And I remember interviewing for my first internship. And on my resume, I had that I was this head hostess. And when the president of that company at the time interviewed me, he goes, oh, you were the head hostess. That's great skill set. Obviously, you have leadership abilities. You have the ability to talk with others, and you're great at training. I was like, oh, well, I'm glad you translated that for me, because I didn't. And that's why it's so important, where I was lucky where he translated that, because he had worked in restaurants himself. But that's honestly what was the most impressive thing on my resume to him. Not my degree, not my courses I've taken. A little bit of the leadership and the volunteer experience was there, but he was really impressed that I had work experience. So a lot of times with recent graduates or people that decide to go back to school, you think, oh, well, I worked my way through school. I didn't have internships. Well, internships are a privilege. I was lucky I got paid a whole whopping $10 an hour at mine. But if you can't take an unpaid internship, that's okay. Work experience qualifies for you having actual experience. And when I got into that internship, it ended up being a recruiting internship. And I used a lot of those same skill sets I gained from working in a restaurant at this internship. I mean, problem solving. When you're a recruiter, anyone knows this, that you get called some choice words and choice names. And that's way before all this craziness of ghosting and everything was happening. We're talking in a decade ago plus, decade plus actually. But those skill sets landed me my first internship. And these skills I gained, I unconsciously was using for this internship. I mean, my negotiation skills, my getting out in front of people, public speaking skills. And as I felt more comfortable with those, when I did decide to go away to college, I joined a few leadership groups, volunteer groups. I was part of the largest student-run philanthropy in the world at Penn State. And as I grew in leadership, I had to eventually talk in front of people. So it started off as 30 people, and then it turned into 100, and then it turned into 400. And I was nervous as hell when I did that. But that public speaking really got me comfortable in front of people. Of if I could talk to a bunch of college kids and keep their attention, what else can I do? So those skill sets that on paper don't seem that impressive, or just like, oh, well, I was just a volunteer for this organization, or I just worked as a hostess, or I just dabbled into bartending, or I just helped my family's business. Those have helped me go so far in life, and even being successful with the resume rescue, or even, hey, talking on a freaking podcast to all of you that are listening to this right now. We are just so negative on ourselves about, oh, they're just these skill sets. No, they're not. And you do what you have to do. I tell any recent graduate, if you need to go bartend, or if you need to go work in a restaurant, or if you need to go do this and that, that's okay. So you want to make sure you're still aligned, and you want to make sure all is good to go. Now let's fast forward to hiring now. As you know, if you've been listening to other episodes or followed the story, I ended up in recruiting out of college. I worked in recruiting for a few years until I ended up getting fired and then starting my own business. And where I hired, and this is not just me, this is other hiring managers too, a lot of people prefer some type of customer service experience. And not even just for customer service related jobs, sales, marketing, operations, just people that have the ability to solve problems in a timely manner. But these skill sets are needed. When I hire people for my own business, that is a preferred qualification. I'm going to take you who has that food and beverage experience 9 times out of 10 over the person that may have more industry experience. And I'm not saying it's an all one size fits all situation, but I know how your abilities are to deal with people, to deal with difficult people, to deal with people from all walks of life, or getting screamed at in your face and you're still have a smile on and help. And not that we deal with that here at the Resume Rescue, but I know you have the ability to make things happen. So we want to make sure that's good. And these skill sets, I cannot say it enough. You think that are not a big deal. They are a big deal. Not everyone has people skills. Not everyone has the ability to handle more than one project at once. Not everyone can manage those things. So please stop downplaying your experience. You downplaying your own experiences are not allowing you to get your next opportunities. You could talk about things you did in college, talk about things you're passionate about. My favorite job outside of owning my own business was working in a restaurant or bar. It was. And now, as I mentioned, my uncle has his own restaurant. I still work in it and I still help, and I freaking love it. So just because society and everyone says, go get a real job, I don't care. Please do what's best for you, your family, your own situation. And I challenge you for your next interview, talk about those skill sets. Talk about those jobs that you were just this or you were just that. And especially for my stay-at-home parents, you wrangle those little ones, and that is a full-time job. Managing appointments, managing sports, managing feeding time, managing your house. I mean, you are an operations manager through and through. Any volunteer experience you did at your kiddos' schools, any volunteer experience at church, any volunteer experience anywhere, you need to get used to talking about this in an interview. And if you need help with that, you know we got you. You know we can help you with that. But please, I challenge you for your next interview to talk about those skill sets, because they may land you your next opportunity. Thank you again for tuning in for another episode of That's Business.
If you're looking for a career change and you're not sure where to start, the Resume Rescue can help. Sure, there's no such thing as the perfect fit for everyone, but here at the Resume Rescue, we're on a mission to find the perfect solution for you. Whether it's changing careers, updating a resume, learning LinkedIn, or practicing interviewing, we have you covered. Find us online at theresumerescue.com and find all of our contact info in our show notes.